One day at school when I was about 13 or 14, I decided that I was going to bully someone. I was going to take out my own feelings on someone else. And I picked out a kid and I must have said nasty and mean things to them and made my attempt at bullying them. And I'm pretty sure I made them feel rather bad. And I also made myself feel absolutely terrible as well. And the very next day, I went and found them again during lunch hour. I apologized for what I had done the previous day, and they pretty much didn't want to know me after that, which is fair enough. And the reason that I did this is because I myself was bullied, and for lack of a better word, I would say I was chronically bullied through junior school and secondary school, which I believe is the equivalent of middle and high school in America. And there are lots of different ways school systems are set up, but that is pretty much the large part of being at school and being at school when you're a teenager as well. And as I said, throughout this time, I was bullied constantly, consistently, verbally and physically, and it drove me to a lot of dark places in my mind, a lot of dark thoughts and feelings. And this video, I guess, is about what happened to me. And I hope that by sharing this story, it may help some of you. So I'd like to preface the rest of this video just by saying if I sound a little cold and distant, it's because I've been thinking this over a lot and it's quite painful to talk about this stuff. I really feel like I have to almost try not to imagine it by talking about it. So I probably don't sound like my usual self, which is to be understood, I guess. And in my live streams, people often ask me about school, and if you sat around for a lot of them, you might know I'm rather hesitant to go into detail. I tend to say that school didn't work for me, I didn't like it, and I got no interest in going back to a school. Obviously, it wouldn't be the same as an adult going to a college at all. But this is because I don't want to talk about these particular topics, and I tend to just shimmy around it with that usual answer. Now, what happened to me at school is the school system failed me miserably. I still feel rather bitter about it because I was bullied horrendously during my time at school. It was consistent, it was pretty much every day, almost every lesson. My favourite lessons at school were the ones where there weren't bullies, and there were not a lot of those lessons, just maybe one or two or three a week. I was basically a punching bag as a kid. I was just a soft kid. I was weaker, and people spotted that in me and used it to take out whatever was probably going on in their lives on me. And this is a phenomenon that happens with young people around this age. Bullying is a thing that most likely to happen in school when kids are around this age, when they're formulating their identities, when they don't know how to deal with their own feelings. So for most of my bullies, I imagine they probably came from broken homes or had their own issues. In fact, I know what some of them had gone through or been through tales that you learned, people talking about what other people do. And then for myself, that drove me into really dark places and feeling really rotten pretty much every day. The way in which the school system failed me was that they understood that I was being bullied because I followed their advice and procedure to come in and tell teachers and report it when it would happen. And what would usually happen is the very next day, the bullies that I reported would come after me and beat me up or say horrible things to me. And that happened several times, and then I gave up. And as the years went by, my behavior got more and more erratic. I started to push the boundaries of what I could do in school. This would include walking out of lessons, skiving, disappearing from school, and the teachers wouldn't punish me for it because they knew the reasons why I was behaving the way that I did, but they didn't do anything about this. And this even involved me missing examinations, especially around the GCSEs, also getting what they called senior detentions, or doing things that got me into trouble at a higher level, yet I would simply ignore the punishments that they would put on me, and they just let it be because they knew that if things came to light, that they had ignored a lot of the bullying that I went through. And this even extended to several times where things would happen in front of teachers. In fact, one of the worst days I remember was being jacked in front of a lot of people and looking up and seeing about 4 or 5 different teachers all watching it happen and doing absolutely nothing about it. So yeah, the school system really failed me on this one. As well as this, I also didn't really have any friends that I would look back at and call friends, but I certainly had a manipulative friend who was a bully themselves and essentially used me as a punching bag or would steal things from me, use me as the butt of their jokes, and it was awful. But I feel like by talking about this, I might be able to relate to some of you out there and hopefully offer something that may give you comfort or may give you a way out of these kind of situations. And the reality is, my way out of this situation was very long winded, and things got worse after this point in my life. In fact, they had to get a lot worse before they could get better. But if you know who I am today, obviously I'm a happy, cheerful chap. I love what I do for a living. I feel so much different from that person that I ever used to be. And the story there is that, change happens over time, and wherever you're at now doesn't necessarily mean it will be where you could be at in the future. So I never learnt how to deal with bullies, and I'm not sure what advice I would give to myself if I could go back in time and talk to a younger me. And I'm no expert in what to tell anyone else how to deal with bullies, but there are two types of advice I can think of that would be useful. And this first bit would be to people who, well, it would be to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're bullied or not. Whatever you do or you say to anyone, no matter how much of an arsehole they might be acting out or seeming like at the time, people exist in moments, and these moments that we're in can be driven by emotion, and many things can be going on behind the words or actions of an individual that lead them to behave like they do. And you might not know the full state of mind of that person. They could be at a breaking point, and I myself have been through many breaking points, which I will talk about in future videos. Now, during the last years of school, I became increasingly despaired by my situation, which caused me to act out a lot. And I started to be the arsehole and the antagonizer. I would actually deliberately antagonize my bullies to come after me in some strange form of wanting some sort of control over what was going on in my life. I don't really know how to explain that, but it was something that I did. And I, in those moments, would have been a horrible person to other people, or would have been saying stupid and silly things. If you always try to just be the nicest person you can be to other people, no matter how they're behaving, you'd never be the person to push someone over the edge or to help them reach that breaking point, or maybe inflict some sort of pain or stress or harm when they might seem like someone who has none of that in their life. We all have inner lives that other people don't know about, and so the best way to move through life is just to be considerate. If someone else is being the arsehole and you might throw a snarky remark back at them, you don't need to do that, because you just don't know what's going on inside other people's minds. The other piece of advice that I have is for those who are bullied like I was. Whatever you do, you must try to do something. If you fall, you must get back up again. I could only get to where I am today by fighting battles with myself and these inner demons from being bullied and other abuses and things that happened to me in my life. The point is, don't ever give up. Don't ever let that defeatist attitude come over you. Wherever you're at, know that there could be a brighter day towards it, and you've just got to find whatever it is you have in you to try and get to that place. Now, that might not sound very practical, and that's because I didn't have anything practical I could apply myself at the time. They say you should tell a teacher, and that worked out horribly for me on many occasions. However, I have heard that things are supposed to be so much better now at schools across the board. It's the general thing that I hear about whenever these conversations come up, that bullying is nowhere like it was when I was around. So I think you should at least try it. If it backfires, then you can try again if you want to, and if it continues to backfire, then maybe that's not the way to go. But again, the point would be to try something and not to feel powerless and do nothing. You should also consider maybe a family member or a friend who you could trust. Talk to this and get it off of your chest. I know it can be difficult to put trust in other people, but I think it is important to try to do that. Sometimes you'll end up putting trust in people who can't be trusted, but there are good people out there, and you should try and talk to other people and get it out of your system, get it off your chest, and put trust in other people. Now, this last bit of advice, I don't want to sound like I am saying that you should use physical harm yourself, that you should fight back. That was certainly some advice that got thrown around when I was in school, and I never chose to do that. I didn't feel like I had it in me to, air quotes, fight back. However, I do believe that martial arts and self-defense can be a really positive thing. I have not chosen to ever do this myself, but I have learned a lot more about the world of martial arts, and I think could be good for someone who is being bullied, not because you would be able to strike back, but you could prevent yourself from, being physically harmed by deflecting someone else's attacks on you. When I was in school, I got physically hurt, damaged, injured so many times, and I wish that I would have been able to defend myself better from this, and that's what you can do with martial arts. It also puts you in a community of other people who are learning the martial arts as well. It's physical activity, which is good for your mind and your body. It can give you strength and self-esteem, and once a bully knows that you are no pushover, that's for most bullies usually when they will choose to move on and look for someone else. Once again, in the description box down below, I'm going to provide you with a link to what is essentially the latest consensus on this topic, how to deal with it from many different perspectives, and how to participate in finding a solution for it. I will add my own personal note of just wishing you all the best wherever you are, whatever your situation is. I know how horrible it can be to go through these things, and I wish you the best in finding a way out of it. I hope this video has been a comfort for you, and thank you for listening.